When people say, oh, what's your mindset? What's your mindset? I tell them my mind is not set. My mind is free.
Welcome to this week's Escape Your Limits podcast. And today we're speaking to a 6th generation Shaolin Temple descendant who's renowned for his wisdom and influence. A truly gifted and inspirational leader, his mission is to guide people from around the world and all walks of life on a journey of self-discovery so they can overcome any obstacle, unlock their creativity and live an abundant life. He believes in order to change the world and to thrive in every facet of our lives, that we must first change ourselves. Through his profound knowledge and life experiences, he is able to offer powerful mentorship and advice for anyone in search of ways to maximize their true potential. So please welcome author and high-performance coach, Mr. Herman Siu, to the Escape Your Limits podcast.
Herman, thank you so much for joining us on this podcast. I was actually introduced to you by my wife, who's a huge fan. And she's my more sort of like the opposite side, my more spiritual side. So she's been sort of sharing and tagging things. So I was just sort of compelled to meet you and be able to sort of speak to you. So thank you so much for giving up your time today.
Well, thank you for having me, Matthew.
Excellent. So I just thought I've never I guess met anyone with quite the same background as you, and I thought maybe a good place to start for the people listening is maybe you could give us a little bit of a background as to sort of how you got into the field and a little bit about your sort of your family and history, just to give people a little bit of perspective.
So if you look at my name, Siu, we had a dynasty way back, okay? And then in that dynasty, we were where a lot of the martial arts was more popularized, where martial arts was more, shared during that era. And so it was during that time when a lot of secrets or a lot of things was shared amongst the common folk that would not normally be shared, so that it can give them the ability to learn how to defend themselves during those times, or learn how to protect their families, because during that time, they didn't have a lot of the same type of security or the same type of, privileges that we have, or luxuries we have in today's world. So they had to learn how to defend themselves against people who wanted to do wrong. And so in my lineage, when we talk all the way back, when you are part of a certain era or a certain dynasty, you get passed on certain responsibilities, or you get passed on certain types of, secrets that are passed on and passed on and passed on. And so fast forward into today, we have what we call the modern era. And in today's modern era, we have what we like to call as modern day society. And so my responsibility since I was ever born, even before I was born, there was a responsibility as being the firstborn, that I had to have a certain responsibility to carry and carry forward a lot of those same traits and a lot of the culture that was brought from way back. And so in today's world, my whole responsibility is to carry forward a lot of those responsibilities and a lot of those traits and bring it into the modern world to help protect and to give the common folk and people a chance for better health, better well-being, better everything, so that they could then have the peace within. And once they have that peace within, then they can have peace without and share that to the world.
Right. So I've heard of Shaolin, and is that correct pronunciation?
It's Mandarin is Shaolin. In Cantonese, it's Siulam, which means young forest.
Right, Shaolin. And I've heard of that in terms of temples and monks. What's the connection with the monks then? Was that a place where they live in these temples sort of many years ago then?
Yes, you can say that, but it was more popularized when a lot of them, they would go into some complete seclusion, which means they did a lot of wrong. They had no more purpose. They were lost. They needed to find something or belong to something, a sense of belonging. So they would go to the temple and commit themselves to it so that they would have that sense of belonging, that purpose, so that they can go along, live in a more purposeful type life. And so where my lineage comes from is way back from that lineage, but also from the Shaolin Temple, where a lot of the gifts and a lot of the, martial arts and a lot of the ancient practices have been passed on. And I had to learn to embody them to make sure that I master them in this lifetime so I can then share that to the world or help the world and become like a beacon so that the world has a chance to be healthier, be clearer, be more peaceful.
So was this something that when your parents were bringing you up, is this something that they were teaching you from a very young age, these principles that you talk about, refer to?
Correct. Discipline was number one. It's like you want to build muscle without the discipline, the rep every single day, it's not going to build. If you want to get better, learn a language, you don't just say one word and then just magically know the whole language. You have to practice different phrases, right? Have the vocabulary, understand the culture, so that when you practice and practice, then you acclimate. And so it's the same thing. Growing up, I had to have the discipline so that I can acclimate to these practices, so that I can be a so-called person of service.
So how old were you then when you, I guess, knew or found out what your purpose in life was?
You could basically say that even before I was born, the purpose was drawn out. And the second I was born, it was going to be fulfilled. Basically. And not because in a bad way that I'm forced into anything or that I'm being forced into doing things. It's because in my family, so we all come from great families and we have certain bloodlines, but my specific one, it's like I had to follow through. I had to do this, I had to do that. And the reason being is because there was a huge responsibility that I had to live out. I had certain abilities of learning very quick, learning very fast, even before I could even speak. Like they just knew something was different. And they're like, nope, we got to discipline. Because, when you're young, you want to discover, you want to be a little mischievous. And so I would always be curious. And so it was that curiosity that led me to understand greater things at a younger age that a lot of people in today's world may never fully grasp. And it was those principles that was bestowed and the discipline behind that with the experience that you just repeat and you get your reps. And then when you do those reps, that's what's going to so-called build that discipline within that you use less of that and all of this.
Right. I know with children and myself included, when you're young, you tend to, well, a lot of people tend to sort of rebel against their parents' teachings. Did you ever feel as though you wanted to kind of rebel and not be sort of constrained by maybe something that your parents wanted for you?
Of course, that's just natural human, whatever you want to call that specific curiosity that they all want to go against the grain, so to speak, when they're looking to discover themselves. And so to me, that was sport. And so instead of just training martial arts all day, all night, it was like, oh, look at this, look at basketball, oh, look at soccer, look at hockey. So that's when you can call that's where I learned the sport. And that's where I learned a lot of my leadership skills, was leading people who were outcasts or people who were picked last or people that didn't have the respect on the street or on the ice or on the hardwood. And it was learning how to take people who didn't believe in themselves and then build them up so that they can go out and perform and get the results. That to me was when I started to develop that leadership skill. So instead of just being all day, all night, just selfishly, just training, it only goes so far. It's only for this vessel. But how can I do so and help other people in other mediums? And so that's where I turned to sport. And then once I got that out of the system of like being a so-called rebel and doing sport, I was able to harness that leadership style and leadership skill. And then you use that where, you know what, instead of just grinding of martial arts, it's like, what can you see in the world as to an analogy or metaphor as to how it applies in the same way? So I look at it that, okay, well, everyone must start at the beginning. So in the beginning, we train in stance. So in martial arts, we train in stance. So when we go see someone and we see how they play in sport, we always look at their stance. We always look at how are they walking? How are they pacing themselves? How is the body language? What are they giving off? And so from the leadership skill, when you know how to put the right pieces like on a chessboard in the right space, then you can be successful in the position. And so that's where I learned a lot of the leadership skill. And that to me kind of outrooted any of the rebellion, because it was like, you know what? I did do that, but I gained so much more from it. And because of that, parents don't hold it against you, because now all of a sudden you're at 5, 6 years old and you're basically running with people who are teenagers 2-3 times their age, and they're looking to you for help or they're looking to you to lead.
I guess one of the things that causes people, and particularly young men, off the rails is they don't have a sense of purpose. They don't really know what to focus on, and so when they're young, they've got a lot of energy, and without that being channeled, it's easy to put it in the wrong direction. Like certainly speaking for myself, that is. How do you, from your teachings, how do you help people find their purpose? Because I know a lot, even people when they're 40s, 50s, 60s still seem to feel as though they don't know what it is. What sort of what have you done in your teachings to help people sort of really understand what that is?
Very good question, Matthew. So let me explain. So when you look at all the other civilizations that came before the modern era, their number one purpose was what? For the next phase, for the next part of life, when this is no longer in existence. So what happens is they would train, they would harness, like in martial arts, you would harness your chi, your energy. You would learn how to move the chi into different ways, right? In, within, out. You would learn how to harness and then help others. You would learn how to ensure that you protect this to make sure that this can last as long as possible. You learn how to then show others how to do the same. And so for me, it was all about making that connection. And so when you talk about that, it's like, when we build that connection and we grow that connection and we build that and we have that perfect relationship with ourselves, then we are living for greater, how do we say, lens or greater purpose, rather than, oh, we need to go buy this coffee today, or we need to go to this store today, right? It's like, it's just mundane. You're just running in the same wheel. So in order for you to understand, what's the very first thing we did when we came into this world, Matthew?
The very first thing, start to breathe, I guess.
And when you first breathe, if you cannot master that, you cannot master anything. You look at any athlete, whether it's in cross country, training, 100 meters, swimming, whatever it is the breath that they channel to allow the performance, just like in martial arts. But where is that same breath for when you go and drive your car, to when you go and walk your dog, to when you go and pick up something or pick the kids up, right? Where's that same breath pattern so that you can be trained, so that there is no stress that you are imposing, known as tension. And then that tension built up and built up and built up, then that becomes very dangerous, because a lot of things that go in, sometimes people never learn how to get it back out. And so that's why we have to learn to master the breath. And as soon as we work with clients and master that breath, then we're able to show them, okay, now that we're getting the breathing on track, then we could start implementing maybe better habits for the food, or better habits in the exercise, or better habits for what's in your environment, better so-called, how do we say, protection in that environment, so that you don't allow anything to break that barrier, so that the connection between your mind and the body is unified. And once it is unified, nothing can break it, only you.
Right. So in terms of finding your own purpose, are you saying that before you can do that, you need to be in connection, you need to be breathing, eating, moving, and then you're in a position where you can start finding out, thinking, am I right in that explanation?
This and this have to connect. If your mind and body are not connected, there is no performance, there is no results, then there's nothing that you're given purpose to go get done.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So that's why I for both.
Yeah. And I know, like, a lot of the people who listen to this are from the fitness world, and one of the things that's certainly been in common with a lot of the trainers that we have on is that, and unless you can get people's mind to buy into the idea, then kind of forget about people getting in the right physical shape. You've got to kind of get that mind connected first. If we expand on that sort of point that you made previously, then about the mental and physical as it relates to health, and I know you talk about the general separation. Could just explain, going into a little bit more detail in that. When you say that a lot of cases people's mind or mental and physical state are separated, what does that actually mean when you say that?
So our minds are never supposed to be set. They're supposed to be flexible, right? So we have principles in life, So those are our beliefs. So we build principles, build beliefs, and they become our pillars. So let's say you believe we should all be healthy. Okay, so maybe that's a pillar. You believe that everyone should be happy. Okay, maybe that's another pillar, but you must build these pillars. Okay, if we don't build these pillars, then everything will crumble and fall, first off. Okay, next part. When we are building that, we have to learn to not be set in any specific way, which is why when we practice martial arts, me specifically, no style is ever named, no style is ever dominant or predominant. It's where you learn to have the flexibility. So you want to make sure you have the foundation of the principle, but the flexibility in the method. So that's why when people say, oh, what's your mindset? What's your mindset? I tell them my mind is not set. My mind is free. And that is when we start the conversation of when we really want to awaken someone. But when someone's focused on mindset, saying, you know what, no, so-and-so ate so-and-so, and look at their body, so this is the only way to get it. Then what's happening right now is their body and their genetic makeup is one way. It doesn't mean that we're going to have the same genetic makeup, because the same person who can build that can't go run 100 meters, can't go swim breaststroke or butterfly in an Olympic pool and win a medal. So different body types require different types of training. And that's why when we go for different types of training, we have to know what this is best for as to what we are good at. Maybe some is better at speed. Maybe some is better at lifting. Maybe some better at just raw strength. And so we have to know what our strengths and weaknesses are, and then develop within that where we don't set, but we're able to be more flexible in the method. So when we build big, we still don't compromise the speed. When we build speed, we can put something on the frame that we're able to be more actively muscular, where it's not so tight, where it's more active and functional movement. And so when we talk about these things, we have to make sure that the mind isn't set, so that the body can learn to communicate at a greater means and a stronger connection, so that the signal, when it is sent, the body can then go get the results faster. So it's not like you have to do 10,000 times to get one little result. If we do 10,000 times, it's because we're conquering, mastering. And that is what we need to do, is called experience. And when we get that experience and the mastery, then we become what we call second nature. And when it's second nature, we don't think about it anymore. And then we're able to train others. Then we're able to show others.
Thank you for supporting the Escape Your Limits podcast. If you're thinking about creating a unique and engaging fitness space to take your fitness to the next level, then we have you covered. Escape Fitness design and manufacture some of the most innovative, attractive, and durable functional training and free weight equipment used by many of the best trainers and fitness brands across the globe. As a valued listener, we are offering you a 10% discount off many of the products on our website. You can check out the full range by going to escapefitness.com and use the code DUMBBELL. That's escapefitness.com using the code DUMBBELL. That's it for me. Please enjoy the rest of this interview.
So for someone that's just wants to be healthier, so they want to have their body at the right way. They don't want to be sort of overeating or eating the bad things that when they sort of maybe binge food or alcohol or what have you. You mentioned that maybe it starts with the mind, and so what are some of the things where sort of simple takeaways where people can start to kind of move towards that sort of healthier way of living, and not just for a short period, but something that they're able to continue with over an extended period of time, or the rest of their lives?
I understand what you're saying. So let's break it down this way. Most people who eat only eat for taste. They do not eat or take things that are ingested viewed as medicine, or viewed as something that will be more beneficial. Either way, something you put in will either have a good side effect or a poor side effect. And so what happens is, because there's so much information, they just want to put things in, but then they put emotions behind that, Matthew. And it's the emotions that they keep putting behind it as to everything has to taste good, look good, smell good, feel good, all these things. But what the problem is then you become a prisoner to that. And then that's what feeds more and more of the ego that becomes set. And when that ego becomes set, then this becomes hardened. And then when this becomes hardened, then that's how people turn jaded. Because then it's like a crystal heart. It's like you have your heart and then it's all wrapped in broken glass. That's what jaded is. And in order for us to really understand, to break through, we have to understand, like, don't just eat just for flavor, right? There's so many things that are really good for you that are absolutely obscene in the flavor, but it has a very good, how do we say, remedy to maybe cure constipation or maybe cure sleep, whatever it may be. But not everything is all sweet and pretty roses and rainbows and sunshine and unicorns, right? You look at some of the best elder ancient Asian medicines, even just the boiling alone, the scent, well, you can smell a mile away, you would go the opposite way. That's how putrid the smell was. But they knew that this herb, when it boiled with other herbs, it would heal whatever it is that that person had or whatever it is they needed. And they didn't run from the bitterness. In today's world, the mind set on only sweetness, 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 hence the sugar. So what happens? Then everything becomes inundated, and then that sugar is going to go inside and cause havoc, because nobody wants bitterness anymore in life. But the bitterness is called the experience. We cannot run as humans from the experience. We cannot run from the bitterness, because in Chinese we say, Sim Fu Hao Ting, which means at the beginning you must have the bitterness so that you would understand what true sweetness is after. And that's when you say, here's someone who's maybe now learning that they want to build their body or train for the Olympics. They don't magically just train for 5 minutes and immediately go magically win a medal at the Olympics or whatever it may be. They must train and be in the best position. Can you?
Sorry, you froze there for a second. I'm back again. Sorry, I don't know what happened. We must have had a connection drop out. So just from that point about having, you mentioned sort of having that connection. I don't know whether you just want to just repeat that last part again, and we'll just edit that back.
Which part did you hear last, so I know where to start?
So I had the last word I got was connection. So we were just talking about about food and the bitterness of people going for the sweet, but you were mentioning that it's the bitterness that we need to go after.
Yes, life is an experience, and life experiences are not all sweet. Most of them are bitter, right? So you have to learn to embrace the bitterness, the hardships, all the hurdles, all the obstacles in life, so that we can learn to so-called polish, so that we can then make that sweet in our own way. But if we only want to eat sweet, see sweet, hear sweet, taste sweet, like everything sweet, then what's going to happen? Then we're going to go this way instead of going to go this way, where we can ascend consciousness. We are just transcending more of what we already have, which is just being stuck in this with not the best health regimen, without the best routine, without the best disciplines. And then this becomes a prisoner, and we become a prisoner to both of these. That's when we lose control of our life, and we're now dependent on some other system to then give us what we need to survive.
That sounds, I guess, a lot like the world we live in today, where we use the word sweet in terms of food, but I guess in everything, it's looking for that sweet thing, that instant, easy. Everything's got to be nice all the time, and as opposed to, I suppose, even in business, as an example, I suppose nowadays in the internet, it's like, okay, I want to be rich in 60 days, or I want to have the six-pack in 60 days. Everything's sort of short and quick, and yet I guess we all know that's not reality, and yet that's I guess that's what we all want. What's your thoughts on that? Why? I guess what's driving that sort of instant gratification society that we all live in? And I guess a lot of it, well, all of us in some way are probably even consumed by that, whether it's what happens on the news recently or you name it. What's your view on that?
Well, humans have now been conditioned to just be consumers. So consumers are just in this box, advertise, go do this, advertise, go do that. And you basically like pulling strings and pressing buttons to get people to do exactly what it is that you want, with a little bit of manipulation or a little bit of, how do we say, added fuel, and push them in a certain direction. And so we have to stop being just consumers and learn to be more producers. I'll give an example. How many people are out there producing more results for people they don't know? That just walk off the street, you know what, you need a little help, let me help produce, or let me help lay out a business plan for you so that you don't have to suffer this way. Not many. I do. How many people are just going up to someone who's, say, in just high school, just started in high school, and they're like, I don't know what I want to do with my life. We say, okay, let's take some pros, let's take some cons, let's look at some aptitudes of what you're good at, some things that maybe you struggle with, and let's say, okay, what best fits into that so-called space of what it is that you are intrigued by, you are fascinated by, you are, how do we say, so enthused by. And so we need to learn how to bring that out. We got to produce that. And a lot of people don't know how to bring that out and produce that because they're just selfish, fueling the ego of consume, consume, consume. And then what happens when in this world there is nothing left to consume? What will happen to the world?
I guess probably self-implode or self-destruct probably.
Yeah, so we need to produce more. We need to produce better content. We need to produce better, how do we say, education, produce much better mentors or better role models, produce much better understandings so that there's less arguments, less fighting, less disagreements, more of understanding each other. And it's because at the end of the day, Matthew, all we want to do is be understood. At the end of the day, we all want to be understood. But in order to get there, we don't always do it in the best means because a lot of people are not at peace. So the road that they would take is maybe the bumpiest road of all, or the one that they think is the quickest or fastest, or the one that has the hack or the cheat code. And then what happens is when they go through that, then it's very difficult for them to see or face what it is when they finally open their eyes for the first time and look within. Because when they're consuming, they're getting lost. They're getting lost. They're consuming. They need to get things to make them feel good, sweet, sweet, sweet. And then what happens? And as soon as one little bitter thing comes, that's all they remember. They feel pain once, they forgot all the million things you did nice for them, but the one thing that you couldn't do for them, or the one thing you didn't have time for that one moment, they'll remember that. And that's why we have to make sure that we don't become so jaded in that manner, and learn to be more producers, learn to be less complainers, less consumers.
There's a lot of hack and shortcut seems to be, is a very popular word at the moment. It's almost like good to find a hack in your diet or your business or your workout. What's your views on hacks? Are they? I've sort of heard you talk about it a little bit, but I'm interested you share your views and why you think in that way.
So what if everybody who's listening to this or sees this or watches this, what if all of their business bank accounts were hacked? What happens if all their personal bank accounts were hacked? What would you do?
Well, you'd be pretty angry at first.
Right? So that's why I don't use certain words. Maybe we use a little bit of a diversion instead of using hack, and maybe we use more of like, how do we say, an addendum or a modification as to how things used to work. Do you understand? But see, modification. So it's like, oh, that's too many syllables. This can't handle that because we just want to consume. And so we have to learn to stop using things that are just 3 syllables or less that fuel more that consumerism, because then it's actually killing the brain cells because you're not allowing it to expand. You're not allowing up here now to expand. Then it becomes set. And then the wavelength can only consume 1, 2, or 3 syllables at the max. So when they have to read an article now, in today's world, what happens when the modern day society has to read an article and it doesn't fit the 1, 2, or 3 syllable max? They don't get it, or they'll fall under for the advertising that has the 1, 2, and 3 syllables. Then they'll listen to that, whether it's true or not, but because it speaks to them in that monotone. And we have to learn to be better than that, so we're not set, Matthew, so that the mind can be free. so that the mind can expand, like the vocabulary, expand that so that the mind could learn to go places that it's never gone before. That's why you look at all the older civilizations, their mind was so free, it was going places that people cannot comprehend in today's world. And we must learn to allow this to travel into different places that are limited by the human condition at the current circumstances of your environment. And if we can change that without and with it, imagine what we are truly capable of. It's like the cells, every cell in your body, Matthew, 99% of it is space. Why? Because that's called potential. How come we can't, why are we not tapping into more of that, more of that, more of that? Because no one's bringing it out. I want to bring that out for the world. I want to show the world how to bring that out, get that out so they could become superhuman. I want to show the world that.
So what is thought then? Because it obviously drives our decisions, good or bad. It drives our need for this sort of fast, this sweetness that we spoke about. So are those thoughts ours? Are those thoughts that are clouded by the type of life and the thinking we've done? How do you answer that one then?
Okay. So I'll give you the formula that's in the book. So in the book, we have a formula very specific to what it is you just asked. Is it okay if we go over that?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, if you're good with that.
So first part, we have to understand that I will list the formula at the beginning. And then once we go through the formula, I will explain how to engineer and reverse engineer. Sound good? Okay.
Excellent.
So it goes like this. Beliefs become our thoughts. Thoughts then become our words. Words then become our actions. Actions then become our habits. Habits then become the virtue. Virtue then becomes our destiny. So when everyone's the consumer, they're stuck over here in habits. They no longer know how to think for themselves. They need advertising to tell them what they need to go do. So they're stuck in habits. So they just run around like sheep or vampires, like in this, or zombies. In habits. Just keep doing the same thing. Here's the issue, Matthew. If we want a better destiny, we must learn to build virtue. Virtue is the habits that we have that create the greatest impact for the world, greatest impact for our families, that then brings the greatest impact to ourselves. That is a virtue. That's why we say patience is one of those virtues. Because when we're patient with the world, we're patient with the family, then they can learn to be patient with us when we're not at the same speed as they are. So virtue. So let's reverse engineer. We want better destiny, but we don't have better virtues. Okay, so what do we say? If we don't have that, then we reverse engineer to look at our habits. So what do we do every single day? What are we pulled towards? What are we inclined to do? What do we favor and not favor? Look at every single one of our habits and we say, you know what? I can't stop doing this, or I can't live without that, or I don't know why I do this. I just do this. I like that. Then you're stuck in this. And then that's when you just become almost like a zombie to that, because now you can't think for yourself. You're set. In order to fix that, we say, okay, look at our actions. What actions do we take every single moment of our life, every second of every day? Is it towards helping us? Or if it's not helping us, it's hurting us. And so we must make sure, are we doing things that help us? And when we're talking about helping us, it's not just us selfishly. Is it helping us to become better so we have more to offer, more value that we can offer, more value we can give, right? That's what we talk about. So then we say, okay, look at our actions. Are we not all happy and proud with those? Then we say, okay, let's reverse engineer again. Look at the words. Look at the words you listen to from other people on their podcasts, the TV, the news, whatever it is you listen to, or your family, your mentor, whoever it is. Be very cautious what you allow in, because a lot of people don't have a filter. And then when there's no filter, that becomes noise that just goes in and goes in and goes in and becomes like information. And then when it becomes information, it goes in there. And if it doesn't have the filter or the security system, it runs amok. It runs wild within. Sometimes can never be caught or found again. But it was let in. And then when it goes in, then it messes with your thoughts. We have about 70,000 plus of these in a day, Matthew. And everyone listening, 70,000. Imagine that. What happens if you cannot control just one of those in a day? Would you not say that that's not good? But we must learn to have the discipline so that when we control 70,000 plus, all of a sudden now you become more efficient. Now you're best positioned to succeed. Now you know how to build bridges. Now you have an army. Now you have an entire army ready to go for the mission, right? That's why you must discipline. And then what happens? Let's say we can't control all our 70,000 thoughts. Well, why is that? Because we don't have our beliefs that are straight. And the beliefs, our belief system, what we believe in, what we have as beliefs deep to our core, if that is not foundationally strong and it has cracks and it has broken pieces and missing pieces, then the foundation is going to crack and break. So we must make sure that the beliefs that we have are truly ours. The beliefs that we have are the ones that we can stand by. In the old days, we would say, if you believe in it, you would die for your beliefs. And they did. But in today's world, people are not sure of their beliefs because they don't know what they would die for. Would you die for your mom? Would you jump in front of a bus for the mom? Would you jump in front of the bus for the wife? A lot of people don't have that same instinct now. So they become just what? Stuck in habit. So they no longer know how to think for themselves. So then the beliefs got bypassed. The thoughts are run amok, so they don't have control. The words, they keep talking but don't listen anymore. Then the actions, they don't remember what they just did, but they did it anyway. So then that's why you look at a lot of people that do things without consequences, thinking there are no consequences. But there's accountability in everything we do, everything we say, everything we think, everything we believe. So we must make sure that we take much better care of that and make sure that that foundation is strongly built. So then when we have our beliefs, known as our general in the army, then we have recruits, known as our thoughts. So those recruits now work for the general. General says, okay, I'm the general of health. Okay, so you allot maybe 1,000 troops to the general of health. You say, go get me, or make sure that I do this today. Make sure I get my 1,000 steps in. Make sure I get this done. But let's say you go about your day and only 2 of them did good, which was, okay, well, I had my fruit today or I had my water today, but all the other things you said about failed. Then all those 998 troops got fired. And you go and get another new 998 and install that for your general, so that your general then has better working, capacity, that those that can follow orders. So then your thoughts become yours. Then when your thoughts become yours, when you speak, it carries a certain weight. It carries a certain echo. It carries a certain vibrancy that when someone hears it, it transcends their logic. It transcends their walls, their obstacles. It transcends their ignorance, so that they are able to feel it. So that when they're able to feel it now, then they want to make changes with their action. Then when they want to make changes in their action, they do that over long periods of time with the experience. Then we build greater habits. Then when we build greater habits, then we start to develop what are known as virtues. And then when we have those virtues, then we can dictate a much better destiny for the world, for our family, and for ourselves.
I guess it sounds like you're just a lot more together and connected, when going through that process. And I suppose from my experience, I guess that you unless you've had parents maybe like yours that have sort of, drilled this into you from a young age, you probably pick up stuff unconsciously and they become your beliefs, depending on who's influencing you, good or bad, or what you take from those various experiences. I guess as you get older, and what's the saying? You can't teach an old dog new tricks. I guess it does become more difficult to shake off some of those beliefs. What's your experience? For people who are a bit older, they're in their 30s, 40s, 50s, or what have you. Is it difficult to be able to change those beliefs that eventually impact a lot of your thoughts? And if so, what are some of the simple takeaways that people could start with in order to help improve that situation?
Well, that's a very good question, Matthew. And let's begin it with, I would say, the bitterness again. So let's break it down. When we're going through life, we cannot just magically hope or wish that everything's just going to fall in place, or things are just going to get better when we look up in the sky and just wish and just magically. It doesn't work that way if we don't prepare. So when you look at the human condition, a lot of people are not prepared or prepare in for the next phase. So number one, we have to be prepared or prepare in. You want to be a millionaire. Let's say you win the lottery, you have all this money, but if you don't become a millionaire here and here, you're going to lose it all. It's all going to escape. Because if you still feel broken poor here and broken poor here, then it will show without that you won't be able to keep it. You don't know how to invest it. You don't know how to grow it. You don't know how to make sure that it's secure. So what happens? A fool and their money shall soon part. So you must learn to become that, right? You have to acclimate now. And so in order for us to break these things, you need the right type of motivation. And sometimes a lot of people, they have become so hardened in this, Matthew, that, like we said earlier, that it doesn't have the same flexibility that it should, that it was born with. And that is when you start to lose a lot of the flexibility up here. When this is inflexible, this becomes inflexible. And then your views also become inflexible. Everything you want to project becomes inflexible. That's why we must learn to make this as flexible as possible, so that this can connect the neurons up there so that they can be flexible and say, you know what, we connected today, but did you connect with that one? Oh, you didn't connect with that one before? Let's connect you two together. Oh, bright idea. Ding, ding, ding. I just got an idea for a business, right? So it's connecting those things and learning how to connect them at a greater speed, right? So this is flexible and this becomes flexible. Then we're updating our hardware to support our software. Then when we update the software, what's going to happen is you have to make sure it's consistently updated, right? How often do you get updates for your phone or laptop or whatever device you're using? Maybe once a month or more, depending on if they came out with a new system or a new offering. And basically every 6 months now, you get a new hardware upgrade that you can go get. So how often, when was the last time we upgraded our hardware to support the software, so then we can make sure that the speeds are picking up, so that the process and speed of that and the space within allows the process and speed to pick up speed, to pick up speed, to pick up speed. So we're processing at an elite level so that we can perform at an elite level. And so we can always teach old dogs new tricks, but we got to make this less hardened, less stiff, so that this can be less hardened and less stiff, so that then we are able to then see things we were not able to see before, feel things. Perspective is everything.
So I know you work with a lot of athletes as well. In the sports realm then, do you find when people are performing at their highest level that they are in this state that you talk about? They've got that sort of mind and body connection. They've got the habits, the beliefs, and all that in alignment to that specific goal of whatever sport or activity that they're doing then?
You can say that, but some people, they may have had success up to a certain level with maybe a bad form of how they throw, or a bad form on how they shoot, or a bad form on how they run, but they were elite at that level. But as soon as they go to the pro level, like the utmost highest competition, they realize that they got to make some changes. So when you go to training camp or you get initiated in training camp, the number one thing that the person that you see is talking to you says, forget anything you know, forget anything that you brought, forget anything that's back at home. We're going to build you right here. Just like in the army, just like when you go into service, it's to forget all those things so that this is not hardened or set. So that when this is not hardened and set, this can be open to new ways to build the neurons, so that when the coach says, you know what, let's do it this way, then you're not resistant to it. You can actually see what the coach is saying, so then you can apply and implement to get the best results. So that's why when coaches look for someone, especially when they draft now, they don't just look at just physical capability or physical gifts. They want to make sure that the IQ that you're bringing far supersedes anyone else, because then you have a longevity that if you have, say, mediocre athleticism, but your IQ is off the charts, then what they can do is do their best to help increase that athleticism through better training, better diet, better coaching, better environment, right? Better mentors, better group, right? Better leadership, increase the athleticism. But the IQ for some people never gets past a certain threshold because it is set. And so when you look at a lot of guys getting drafted now, IQ is right up there with athleticism, because if you get someone with IQ and athleticism, then they have the most amount of gifts to become legendary. They don't just want an all-star. They want someone that's basically going to be the star of all stars. And in order to do so, you need the IQ for that.
So what about instinct then? Because I guess instinct for me is sort of past experience that's built up that kind of allows you to make decisions about things that you probably don't realize that you're doing maybe quite quickly. And I suppose in some cases it gets you to a certain stage or a certain level. Is there a danger then in the scenario that you've said of just holding on to that instinct too much? And I suppose if you want to, if you're stuck in a little bit of a rut, are you saying is sometimes you've got to almost like, empty yourself? And although those things may have served you to get where you are, sometimes you've got to have what you call that, that flexible mind again, unlearn it and almost look at things with a bit of a fresh, blank perspective, would you say?
Every single day that I wake up, Matthew, I have to unlearn everything I learned the day before so that I could relearn it and sharpen and polish. That's why when we practice in martial arts, you may know how to throw a punch. You may know how to form a fist, but each and every time it's the mastery of learning how to best execute with no recoil, the best execute where there's nothing, no residue that's left over, best execution to how to make sure that there's no internal injury. So same thing when we walk, when we talk, when we apply anything in life, we must make sure that everything we do has the least amount of residual effect. It's known as consequences, or how do we say, if you have cause, then you'll have the effect. When we are looking at the cause, we must make sure the greater the cause, the greater the effect. But if the cause was tainted and ego was in the way and we thought that we were, how do we say, so great and we weren't, and it's just an inflation of that ego, then the instinct starts to diminish. Then the instinct starts to, how do we say, sabotage you. And then that's when the ego lies to you saying, I don't need to practice, I'm good. Or, you know what, I don't need this, I'm good. I don't need to train anymore. What's that? I'll just do it. I'm just built for this, right? Then you don't have the humility to allow yourself to be the greatest you could ever be. And if you don't have that humility, then it makes it difficult to, how do we say, gel, right? Whether it be a team sport, learning with your coach sport, whatever it may be, then the gel would not happen. And then if the gel doesn't happen, then it's a very limited timeline that you would have with that coach, whether it be the greatest coach of all time. It can only last for a short period of time because you didn't allow that humility to gel, where you didn't allow this to be hardened, this to be unhardened, this to be unhardened. The flexibility runs right through your existence, so that once you see something, you apply, and you keep applying until it becomes not just second nature, but the only nature. That it is, you are living and breathing that, whether it be shooting the jump shot, whether it be a slap shot, whether it be a touchdown, whatever it may be for you, it is up to you now to make sure that nothing is hardened inside or inside here, so that you are learning to be more flexible in the methods, so that you can see things and do things that you never were fully capable of. And then you are able to supersede and surpass all of that so-called potential. You want to make sure potential is infinite and just keep living out, and then tapping into that.
So another thing on thoughts then, I don't meditate. It's something I'm hopefully going to learn a bit more from you and do it. But one of the things I do quite frequently is I run, and normally after about 20 minutes or something, my mind just kind of clears everything that's going on in my day. I'm not consciously thinking on stuff, but then things come into my mind like ideas, and some of them are good, some of them are okay, but I kind of get all these really good ideas, and I think are good ideas, and it kind of leads me. A lot of them are business related for whatever reason. Some of them are about my family, wife, and stuff like that. But they tend to be things that I kind of make a note and I implement in my life and business, and they sort of move me in a positive direction. So in that case, then where I suppose it's, when I'm not running, I kind of have certain beliefs, and sometimes if I've had a tough week, those things can sort of drag me down and get me to pull my hair out. But if I'm running, I kind of get these really good thoughts, and the world just looks better, and everything's going to be all right again. So what's the difference? What do you think is kind of happening in that situation then?
So for me to share this, you can edit what you like and what you don't like, because I don't want to overshare certain things about your personal life. But I'm not sure if you know what I can do. I can see everything within the person. So I can share some things if you would like, but then you decide as to what you want to keep and not keep. That's how
Yeah, let's go for it. Go on.
okay. So the reason being that happens is because the adrenaline is pumping. So what happens is the adrenal gland is right over the kidney. So when you're going through that and you're pumping through that, things are flushing out so that things are not stuck. That's when you're able to tap into things. That's when you're able to get those ideas. But the issue is as soon as you stop, it's like comes screeching halt. Things want to come back. And it's the traffic buildup. And you have to learn to stop doing the things that keep the traffic buildup so that when you do have and you clear all the lanes of the traffic within, that it can flow all 5 lanes or 10 lanes, however many lanes you have, that they can continuously flow where you don't necessarily depend on a run to get you into that state. Do you understand? Because then genius cannot be tapped into. And if it cannot be tapped into on demand, then it will not be long lasting. It has to be where the IQ is developed to the point that you have now developed inside here that, okay, you know what? I don't necessarily have to run to get ideas on business. I don't have to run to understand things about my family because I'm letting go of all the things and I'm learning all the things that I don't need. I'm only putting in what I do. And in today's world, everything is showing us that a lot of things in life are very unnecessary. So when things are being closed and things are not as, how do we say, necessary, we say, you know what? Is that really necessary? Is this really necessary? And basically we're being shown in life the hard way, in the bitter way, what is actually necessary. The oxygen, right? The hydration, the food, the family, the comfort, the home, that the people that make the home, like that's the necessary things. And so you just have to be very cautious in making sure, like when you're going about things, don't just depend on the run to get you into that state. You have to say, if I can get into that state with the run, I can do it without. I just need to get rid of all the things in the way blocking me from that so that my traffic and my highway is continuously open, so that when it's open, I can be at my best every time for my wife, for my family, for my business, for those I care about. And then that becomes the duty. That becomes a greater purpose. And then once you have that duty and greater purpose, that is what's going to fuel you now to get better results faster, so that you are not doing it just for yourself. You're doing it for the greater good of others, to create that imprint. And once you create the imprint, then you no longer leave a footprint on the planet.
So how there must be a lot of people like ourselves, a lot of people that are in jobs or in business that, unless you're one of the fortunate ones, are going through a tough time at the moment. And when you have that pressure on you, that spills over into other parts, even in your business, you're kind of carrying this weight around with your family, for example. And I guess it's a real thing, but as I said, you kind of go for a run or whatever, you meet your friends and you kind of forget about it and you're good for a while. So how do you sort of get rid of those blockages? Because I guess, like we talked about thoughts, I guess you're choosing to, unless somebody else, some other thing up there is forcing those into your mind. I don't know, maybe that happens. But if not, if it is you, then I guess, do we choose our own thoughts? And if we're unhappy and stressed with our family when we come home because we've had a crap day, that's us doing that. And if that is us doing that, why do we not choose not to bring it home with us?
Oh, because humans have attachment issues. That's why advertising's to fuel more of that, so that you become more of the consumer, like we said. It's because they have attachment issues. Perfect example, you have a baby, as soon as they like one little thing, what happens? It has to go everywhere with it, right? They like one little bottle, or they like one little toy, they like one little stuffed animal. You can't take that away from them ever, because now it's become an attachment. So humans have to learn to get rid of these attachments so that they can unwind, so that they can, how do we say, shed that skin, right? We have to shed that skin, so that when we shed that skin, what's going to happen? Then we make space for the new one. And so in order to make the space for the new one, you have to go through the toughest part of shedding the skin. But nobody wants to shed. Everybody says, you know what, let's just keep adding layers. And then what happens when you keep adding all these layers? It's going to go this way. And so we want to make sure we don't go this way, we go this way. We want to ascend consciousness, right? But in order to do so, we must transcend this living experience that we're living on this plane of existence. And so we have to learn to ensure that the humility is paramount. So let's say we got a hand that we don't like. Treat life like poker. let's say we get a hand that we don't like, okay? So when we first get dealt the hand, we don't even know what the cards are on the table yet. So we get dealt the hand, and then the dealer gives you the cards before they start turning over. So you get to see your hand first. So it is called perception, right? So you don't know if it's good or bad, because depending on what the dealer shows out, it could be really good, could be really bad. Doesn't matter if it's a face card, number card, depending on what shows up on the river, you don't know what's going to show. And so for us, we have to say, okay, we got our hand. It's not the end of the world, right? Are we innovating every day? Are we learning something new every day? For instance, I learn a different word in a language every single day, whether it be Japanese today, Italian tomorrow, Spanish the next day, Russian, whatever, the third day, fourth day. It's to learn a little bit of something every single day. So you put yourself ahead of all this competition, right? Everybody's just doing the same thing, nothing really standing out. So you will get lost. And so you have to learn to do things that stand out, greater, shine that star from within. And so learn something new every day. Are you looking to innovate? Are you building relationships? Are you building and growing that army we talked about? Are you making sure your beliefs are strong so that your thoughts can be collected, so that when you speak, that you can build those bridges, you can create those relationships, close those deals, so that the action then becomes very, very decisive, right? They're not going to be very questionable. Your actions are clean and clear. And then you build those habits. And where people get stuck is because they want to have the habit already built, but they don't want to go through the process of the engineering. It's like building the car. I talk to a lot of clients of mine, they're engineers, and they say, you know what? If we didn't have someone that led us, no car would ever be built. Why? Because they'll always want, you know what? Maybe we should do it this way. Maybe we should do it that way. Maybe this is better. And no car would ever be built. So they need to have some form of accountability with direction and discipline to create that prototype. And every day we have a chance of creating a better prototype. So we have a working prototype that then is able to, how do we say, upgrade the hardware, upgrade the software, so that we're able to do more in this life.
So in terms of that sort of coming back with, coming home with that stress, is what you're saying then is you kind of got to go back to the beginning and just rebuild that up a layer at a time, and eventually with a lot of practice and work and discipline, that won't be there as it probably is. But I suppose that kind of makes sense.
I don't call it work, I call it play.
Right. See,
sports, they work the hardest than a lot of other professions, but what happens? It's called a play. Look at this play, or play ball, or look at this game. Look at how they played the game. So then it's play. So then they're able to do things out of more, how do we say, passion or more conviction, because it's play. Even if they're going to risk injury, even if they're going to be where it's dangerous, even if their life is being threatened, it's called a play. And so they'll do it. But as soon as it's considered work, what happens? It takes all the fun out of it. And when do we learn the most when we're kids? When we're having fun. And so we have to bring fun back into different things and learn to create fun with the hand that we're dealt, so that we are then able to learn how to say, you know what, I'm going to fold today, but tomorrow I get a new hand. And when I get that new hand, it doesn't matter what I'm getting, I'm going to make the best of it, because I'm going to make sure that every single time that I'm going to get this, finally one day maybe I will be a dealer. And maybe nobody's going to dish out. I'm going to be the one calling the shots, that's calling the hand. And then maybe I can educate people on what it means to have a better hand every day, so that then my workforce is able to be like a machine.
So what about money? Interesting time at the moment where, again, a lot of businesses don't have it. People are going bankrupt. And I know you've said, I've listened to some of your podcasts, you've referred to money as being a religion for some people. And I was just curious, I suppose as a business owner myself, I suppose money seems to, it's important for so many different levels. Without it, people don't eat, and there's no opportunities, and we don't invest. So I guess from that side, it seems important. But I know, the way you talk it, there's a fine balance between how people focus on money and what it means to them. Would you mind sort of sharing your views on that, and how to probably get that balance a little bit more even?
Don't ever lust for it. Don't ever crave for it. don't ever do harm to others for it, because then it is becoming, how do we say, blood money, or it becomes very tainted or very dirty. You want to make sure that you bring value. You see, the greater the amounts of value, it is in direct proportion as to the amount of value that you're getting back. And even at that moment, let's say right now you give all this value, and everyone's excuses, I give all this value, but I see nothing in return. But you have to be able to do what you enjoy and what you're good at, and be able to do it for free, and value that, and show people the value, so that when you are able to get the right team, when you're able to get the right advertising, when you're able to get the smarts and the IQ cap that goes on, then you're able to say how to best position this value. It's all about creating value, because then the money just becomes the exchange of that value that you bring into the world, right? And so we must learn to create more and more of that value within, and then the byproduct of that value will equate to monetary, remuneration. But if we only think, oh, well, you know what, the latest phone came out here, or you know what, the latest gaming system came out here, or the latest this came out here, I got to figure out how to go get that now as a consumer, then you're not bringing as much value. But if you say, you know what, I'm not going to focus on any consumer goods for the next 6 months. I'm going to just keep what I have. I'm just going to focus on what it is I need to do. I'm going to bring as much value as what I humanly possibly can. And I'm going to focus and learn something new every day. I'm going to be a machine. And I'm going to produce that I've never done before. No interference, no distractions, go. Only focus on bringing value, produce. You will see, once you get rid of your interference and your distractions, whether it be social media, whether you're comparing to what someone else bought or what someone else is getting, once you get rid of all that noise and you only focus on producing value, you will see your life change like this. Once you're consistent every single day, wake up same time, do this most creative thing in the morning after meditation and exercise, do your most creative thing. Then after that, you take care of your body, right? Then you have the right nutrition, then you go out and then you go into a routine. This hour I dedicate to this hour I dedicate to that. And then you want to make sure that you are methodical in your action, so that you use less of the power from this. And then you create where your habits are now being developed, so that you are now forced to do things and then have fun with it, have joy with it, create, learn to produce, right? Once you're getting into that feel of producing, then it's value that is at the epitome, at the paramount, at the top. And if we focus on the value creation, the other things will tend to take care of itself, provided that the idea is good and making sure you have the right strategy, the right business plan, the right whatever. But the value is what you need to create. And once the value is created and you understand real value and you understand how to scale, then you just add fuel to the fire, and you'll never have to worry about remuneration again, because you create value.
Why do you think it's the source of so much problems in relationships, in with I think one of the biggest reasons of divorce is down to money, and with friends falling out and disagreements with other businesses. Why do you think that money is such an issue? And as you say, I guess in a lot of cases it is kind of a religion. We all I guess pray for more of it, and I guess sort of bow down to it. What do you think is the root of that then? What's the history of that, would you say?
Debt has now become the modern day slavery. So we have, say, student loan, we have mortgage, we have car loan, we have this, we have that, we have this, we have that. So debt, but we only make X amount in a year. So now we become a slave to that. We become a slave to paying this back. Bills, this, another bill, this. So we've now become slaves to the debt. And so what happens is the reason why the relationship is suffering the most is because they can't quick fix it. They can't press a button and make it go away. They can't go and just say magically snap fingers and it's going to dissipate. So when they live together, what's happening? Well, you're the closest target. What's going to happen when there's big, huge debt and they're looking for a target to get out of what it is that they can't face or don't want to face with it? Then they're going to take it out on the person closest to them. So in order to answer your question, we have to learn to eliminate and reduce that debt, the household debt, so that when we are doing so, we give people a better chance to have options, so that they can have that freedom, so that they can live their life. But a lot of people don't have that because number one, they were never shown a plan how to do so. Number two, they did things maybe a little premature. Maybe they had a kid too young. Maybe they started a business and they went with wrong people and they lost everything. Or maybe their hand was just not that great, whatever it is. But the idea is you have to learn as a means to ensure that debt is not continuously compounded or incurred. That's why I say no consumerism should be the paramount or the first thing we do, because it's like everybody's TVs got thinner, phones got thinner, everything got thinner, but the debt got fatter. People got bigger, right? And so we got to get rid of the debt, make the debt like the size of your phone and the size of your TV and the size of your plasma or LCD or OLED. Make the debt like that, but make your assets like this, assets like this. You want to balloon in the assets, but we must reduce the liability. And so that's why we have to consolidate that debt, pay it down, pay it down, pay it down, no interest, no interest, no interest, because it's not in our interest, so that we're able to have more working assets and more working capital so we can invest in greater things, invest in the future, invest in our family, invest in the world and the planet. Once we reduce that debt and eliminate that debt within our own household, it gives us like that freedom that we have the wings, that we can fly, that we're able to be free again, that we're able to do things that a lot of that stress that we have incurred, we don't realize it's causing a lot of our health issues, mental issues, and well-being because of that pressure. We don't view it as play anymore. We just do redundant things. And then that's when a lot of this human spirit starts to go away. A lot of the human spirit starts to disappear because of death.
And it's a shame because I guess that coming back to the early part of the conversation, a lot of that debt is created because we're probably unhappy with something about ourselves and where we are. So it seems as though we try and buy our way out of that to feel better.
We dig even deeper.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. It's funny. So I guess, and some of that I think is being aware and being present with where you are. And one of the things I guess that's been a bit of a gift, if you can call it that. I know there's a lot of bad things about it, but with what's happening in the world, I know myself, I used to be constantly traveling. Every 4 weeks I'll be on a plane for somewhere and not really knowing where I am, wake up, what bed am I in today? And so you're on such a fast life. And I suppose now being a lot slower, life's a lot slower, and you kind of appreciate things a lot more, and you get a lot more time to think, I guess, and you recognize the simple things like you said earlier, family and relationships and that sort of stuff. So what advice would you give about how to have that time in the day where you are present? Because my guess, and please tell me your thoughts on this, is that if you can get that time where you're probably connected and present, you're less likely to want to go and have to meet some kind of false need by buying something and potentially putting yourself more in debt. What's your thoughts on that?
It's because they're not at peace, Matthew. Everybody's in the business that they want peace. They want to rest in peace, Matthew, but how many people live in peace? And it's because they're not at peace is why they keep buying things, right? Because if you were at peace, you would realize, you know what? I already have a good working laptop. Why do I need to go buy this one? Or I have a good working phone. Why do I need to go buy the latest one? Or I have good working shoes, not a scuff on it. Why do I need to go buy the latest limited edition J's or something, right? So it's like we have to learn to eliminate that consumerism type behavior of just consume, and become a succubus, but learn to have the peace within and say, you know what, is it necessary? I have this, do I need 10 more of that? I have this, do I need another one of that? We've done this, do I need to keep doing that? Like, it's to learn to be where we have the humility that we are grateful for all the little things and all the blessings that life offers to us, like the oxygen that we breathe. What happens if oxygen is compromised? Life will cease to exist. So how about we learn to appreciate that, maybe plant more trees, maybe preserve the rainforest and build more forest. That's why Shaolin is called young forest. is to understand when you master that young breath at a young age, then you don't have the rigidness, you have the flexibility so that you can overcome any obstacle. That's the training. Then when you do things in that manner, anything that life throws at you, it's just a walk in the park, as someone would say, because it is not any different, because you have built the character and the experience to handle anything.
Mm. Mm. And it's interesting. It's one of the things that I've played with for a while. It's having that balance between satisfaction, but also drive. Because I guess like you talked about in terms of innovating and moving things forward, you know, there has to be a drive, and you know, the world, if it's done in the right way, is going to move on because there are people that are driven and want to do something. As opposed to just saying, well, I'm happy, I'm going to sit on the beach and just bliss out kind of thing. So what's your advice on how to get that happy balance between having that inner drive to want to add value and do things, like, you know, you've got that sort of purpose, but at the same time, kind of enjoying exactly where you are in this moment?
So there's a very thin line and a very balance that has to find its way. So it's like water. Water always finds its balance, right? It doesn't just stay here. It doesn't just go like this. It's always looking to find its balance. And so the reason being is because water is one of the oldest things that, just like as you drink, the oldest things that we have that supports all form of life. And so it is ancient. And so we must learn to become like the water, just like Bruce Lee said. Like, you have to learn to become like water. Be like water, my friend, because when you become that, anything that happens, you find a way. Anything that comes in your way, you find a way. So when it needs to work or move in a river, it will move. But when there's something that stops it, then it's able to say, you know what, maybe we have to make a stop right this moment, because maybe we didn't spend enough time with the family this week. Maybe we didn't take better care of ourselves because we've been traveling too much. Maybe we didn't get an adequate amount of sleep. So you have to know what your parameters are. How much hours are you dictating or reserving for the family? How much are you reserving for sleep, for health, for well-being? And then when you go about, you say, okay, now I have a working agreement with myself that says, okay, these are the amount of hours you're allowed to do this. Go, maximize that time, be efficient with that time. And then if there's some meetings that go over, then you can maybe make some flexible moves, but you understand that the family, your well-being, all of those things are priority just as much as the business, because without your well-being and your sanity, very difficult to run a business in that manner or in that state. And so you just have to earmark and reserve X amount of time for that, so that when you are then going about it, you're like, you know what, during this time, I'm going to give it my all. And then when I stop, I got my beach I'm going to go relax on. I got my walk I'm going to go take. I got the dog I'm going to go spend time with. I got the family. We're going to have dinner together. And then you use that to recuperate. And then you get ready to go again. But you have to earmark. You can't just go all hard on business and say, you know what, I'll find time for the personal after. Because usually when that happens, personal is always the thing that you sacrifice. Then there's no time for that. And then you sacrifice a lot of your health. And when you sacrifice the health, sometimes you may never be able to get that back.
Mm-hmm. So 2 more questions before we wrap up. But before that, where can people find more about you? I know you've got a book, you've got podcasts. Just share a few ways if people want to learn more. And I'd highly recommend it, because when I did the research for this, I started checking out these really nice little podcasts that you've got on YouTube. And there's some great, so many different subjects. We've only really touched a few, but yeah, just please share some of the ways that people can learn more about what you're up to.
So on Instagram, it's herman.siu. On YouTube, you can look up Herman Siu. When you look up on Facebook, it's Herman Siu. So you see all the different angles. So for different platforms, maybe we do a little more podcasts. For other platforms, maybe we did a little bit more showing like what it's like to work with a client. On a different platform, maybe it's showing a different angle, right, of us traveling or us vlogging. So it's just different platforms resonate well on different so-called things like videos, or maybe it's more posts, or maybe it's more more intimate. So you can look on all those different platforms. The book is on Amazon, The Hero in You. You want to utilize that formula for your business, for your personal, for your whatever it may be. That formula in that book will allow you to really transform life itself.
Fantastic. So 2 questions then before we wrap up, Herman. The first one is about meditation. I've got to get started. I've been saying this for a number of years. What are some of the bits of advice or tips that you can give me as to, well, one, why should I be doing it, and two, what are some of the small steps that I can take to start to make this more of a habit in my life?
Anything that comes at the cost of your peace is too great of an expense, Matthew. So meditation is to ensure you don't ever sacrifice or lose that peace. Understood? Meditation's only purpose is to get that peace, so that once you say that you own that peace inside, then you can have the stillness, because then once you have that peace, you have the emptiness, and then the emptiness allows you to have that stillness. And that's why when you have that meditation, you get into the routine of that, it's to build more and more of that peace, so that you can command out of your IQ what it is you want to do, where you don't have to necessarily maybe do a run, or maybe you don't have to look for something dependable outside to get results within. So it's meditation that allows you to create that space, that peace. And then it's just like any device you have. Once you have the space, and then you have the processor with all that space, you pick up speed, you pick up momentum. So meditation is to allow that space to be open and free, where it's not set or hardened inside the body or in the mind. You have that peace, you have that tranquility, you have that stillness, and you allow yourself to build a space inside that nobody or nothing can interfere with. And once you have that, you're able to slow down life, but then speed it up and see farther ahead. Just like a Steph Curry, just like a Michael Jordan, just like the greats. The game slowed down, but they were thinking 10 plays ahead, or they could see 10 plays ahead because of how they were able to slow it down. And so that's when the IQ is kicking in. And so that's what we have to learn to do in terms of that, in terms of meditation. And then where you can learn that, we have a free one on my YouTube, right? You go on Herman Siu. There's a free one, 10 minutes. That's all you need. And the reason why I say that is because I prefer to maximize 10 minutes in my day and then go give 16, 18 hours of real action, versus 6 hours of my day doing meditation, and then I do maybe only 4 or 6 hours of action, because last time I checked, results are done when you do things, not when you just sit there, right?
Yeah. When do you do yours? First thing in the morning, do you?
Correct, because I want to make sure that the peace is able to be achieved at the very beginning, and I'm able to harness and maintain that for the rest of the day.
Yeah, I think sometimes I need that. You can get carried into the day, and before you know it, it's like, oh, I could do with slowing down a little bit.
Don't let your phone or your laptop or that email or that message be the first thing you wake up to. Meditation is the first thing you wake up to, so that when you do see those things, the message, the email, whatever it is that comes your way, you view it in a different manner. You don't view it as a reaction, you view it as more of a response now. And when you respond, you're able to use more of the IQ and more of that experience to get that fire put out faster. But when you first thing in the morning, there's no peace, no meditation, no space inside, but your processor is being demanded to go fix this, then inside becomes very flustered very quickly, and it's very difficult to sometimes see what's right in front of us.
Yeah, I agree. I think that's right. It's being almost like forced to respond in a sort of, I guess, a fight or flight way. It's like, okay, someone's coming at me and now I need to move, as opposed to sort of being able to allow that thing, idea, whatever, to roll over and not feel the need to respond. I know sometimes if I work out in the mornings, that does help me. But I think you're right. If I could do that for 10 minutes in some other way, I'll give it a try. That's for sure, Herman. I'll report back. So final question then. Escape Your Limits is about escaping what you've believed is impossible and gone on to make it possible. What would be an example where you've escaped your own personal limits?
Every single day I escape a limit, Matthew. Ever since I was a kid, I was able to see, I'll give an example. I'm able to look at someone and just see everything that person has, good, bad, ugly, whatever they carry, whether it be health-wise, if an organ is failing, whether it be that something is going to happen, whether something that already happened. Like, I'm able to see all that, and people say that's not possible. Well, that's all I do all day, is to show people what is possible what they thought was impossible. And I'm able to help them and guide them to give that direction. Another one is, imagine if you have a company, and this is what I do for my clients, Matthew. So let's say a company's starting up, they have X amount of clients, a lot of people are looking to join on so that they can help service those clients. So the business owner says, you know what, the A, B, and C is applying for this position. Well, what I do for that company is I'm able to look at these people and say, okay, A is great at this, this, and this, but they're not good with this. B is great at this, but they're not good with this, this, and this. C is probably the best candidate because they can see this and do that, but you have to make sure that these are the parameters that you keep them in. Otherwise, if A is interfering with C, then they cannot do their job to their fullest capacity. Just by an image or a photo, we can see energy. We're able to see what's within someone. We're able to, how do we say, understand how it responds or reacts to us or in that environment, right? Just from an image or just from a video or picture or just in person. So that's where we break out of the limits of what this can just see. Because when I see, I don't use these, Matthew. I see with everything within. That's part of the training. That's part of the gifts. That's part of the, how we say, the responsibility that when done things for the greater good, these things can be tapped into, these things can be developed, these things can then learn to be shared to the world so that you can make the world a better place. You can help shape the world into be a much beautiful, more place where it doesn't have to always be all negative.
Fantastic. Well, it's been wonderful to talk to you, Herman. I've got still quite a few. Maybe we'll have a part 2 next time, but I know we've gone for quite some time. So look, I thank you so much for your time. I'd recommend anybody go and check out the podcast on YouTube. There's some really great stuff, very short, easy to digest, but certainly, great mind food, that's for sure. So thank you so much for joining us today, and best of luck with your mission going forward.
Thank you, Matthew, and thank you for having me.
Hey, I hope you enjoyed this podcast. If you did, then please go over to iTunes and subscribe to the Escape Your Limits podcast. Leave a review, leave a comment. It really would help us a lot to continue to keep these going.